Proof of publication shown. I will call this hearing to order. The clerk shows proof of publication. I will call roll first. Trustee Esperson.
Here.
Trustee Brockler.
Here.
Trustee Syracuse.
Here.
Trustee Wandel.
Here.
Trustee Twitchell.
Here.
With that, please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have the sheet. Before we get going, I sense a theme, so I'm going to address the theme before we go any further. Being the parent of 5 children that have gone through the Village of Fredonia in various degrees of programming, I am asking that we are going to revisit the discussion about playgrounds programming. Hear me out. This is on me. And the reason being is we have taught for the last 3 years pickleball to young children. And my reason is twofold. We have an issue with the Barker Playground. A, it's one of the smallest playgrounds and one of the lowest attendance playgrounds. Secondly, we have an issue with residents who are told to smoke there because that's the official place for them to smoke, which lends that to go onto the playground. Second, just from a background in recreation and sports myself, having taught for 3 years in that program and have coached for many years in different sports, we noticed that there was a lot of 4-year-olds with 12-year-olds or 6-year-olds with 13-year-olds. The learning curve is totally different, and the abilities from a physical standpoint are totally different. Depending on the day, we'd have more 4-year-olds or 6-year-olds than we would 12-year-olds and vice versa. So the idea being that Russell Joy Park is so big to the point that you can have tennis and pickleball and basketball and all those different sports, and you can have 2 shelters in case of rain, and you can play softball and baseball and all the other things that they teach them. My original thought was that that would be a central location for that. I expected a reaction, and I respect our residents. So therefore, we will be bringing on our new recreation director next week, and I think it's only fair that that person have a say in what happens to their program. So stay with us. We are going to readdress that issue. So, okay? So I thank you for your concerns, and thank you for your communication. That's why we are here. So we call to order the meeting on this day, Monday, April 15th. I'm looking at the wrong, no, we're at 6:30. And I call this hearing to order. So Sarah Crizal on 12 Central Ventura Circle in Fredonia. I should know that since we're neighbors. Sarah, go ahead and take the microphone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah.
Would you like to go up to the,
Yes.
please? Oh, yes. And you get the TV time then, if you're, yeah, there you go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Crizell, formerly Sarah Hennessy. I grew up as a resident of Fredonia my whole life. My husband and I moved away to Buffalo for 10 years, and 4 years ago during COVID, we moved back to the area. Currently, we are asking ourselves, why? Very disheartening to see a lot of the things happening in this community. I grew up at the playground in the rec department programs, and for as long as I've known, there's been 4-year-olds with 12-year-olds, and it's not ever been a problem. The reason being is that they hire counselors who work with the kids. There's not one counselor per playground. There are numerous counselors per playground. My question for the board is, what were the numbers of registration children in the program last year?
Do you have that from last year?
I don't have those numbers.
Okay. I'm going to guess, just based on being a parent, dropping my child off at numerous playgrounds, also seeing that Barker is not lightly attended, it is very heavily attended. My family lives on Center Street. I drive by it constantly. I live on Ventura Circle. I've seen the Gardner Street playground. I know lots of the high school kids and young college kids who have been counselors who are wonderful. And hold on, let me just bring my bullet point back up. Okay, couple points. The only growing demographic that we have in this village any longer are young families. And if we take away the one and only thing that this village offers for them, we have no splash pads, we have no new playgrounds, we have no museums, we have nothing here. This program has been around for as long as I can remember and has never been on the low end of what people come to sign up for. If you come to this very spot, when it's time for signups, there will be a line down the stairs. A lot of families depend on that, and if we've noticed the demographics of this area in the last 5 to 10 years, it has changed, especially after the pandemic. So, that being said, families cannot afford to put their kids in daycare for the summer. They are now struggling. What are they going to do with their children? Number 2, the same kids at Barker Street who are maybe seeing some residents smoking are not at home watching their parents shoot up drugs. Very highly a problem right now. So instead of being home watching those things, they are now at the playgrounds with a background checked counselor with eyes on those children for 6 weeks during the summer. Secondly, I think it's just disheartening that before we think about other options, we decide to cut a program almost completely, because not only are we talking about the playground programs, we're talking about the drama club, the swimming, all of the other things that these kids are getting experiences to do and learn new things. Now, I happen to know that surrounding villages and towns charge a small fee for their rec program. So, back to my statement before, I'm gonna guess the number of kids we have is probably around 300. If you charged a small fee of $50 times 300 children, if my math is correct, that's $15,000, right? Okay, now, me as a parent, I would love to pay $50 for a 6-week program. You can't even pay that for a day at daycare. So it's an option. I'm not saying it's the best option because our taxes keep skyrocketing with absolutely zero things included. So best option, no, but I think also options that need to be explored rather than completely taken away. Also, the effect on relationships. So I'm gonna use my son as an example. He loves basketball, and he goes to basketball camp every summer. The basketball coach gives the kids at the end of the camp a ticket. If you come to the basketball games throughout the year to cheer on the high school kids, you get a free t-shirt. Cool, my son was elated. He showed up to most of the games, and the teachers all saw him each time, and they thought, oh, Matthew, you're just showing up to all these games. Well, they went, and they had all of the basketball team sign one of the programs for him, and one of the high schoolers brought it to him in lunch. Man, that kid's day was made, right? Still has it, still loves it. Bringing it back to that point is that now throughout the community, he'll be like, oh, there's so-and-so, there's Sal, there's Ethan, they're on the basketball team. But the same thing happens at the playground, because these same high school kids and young college kids in the area are working with the youth, and it's another bridge that is gapped and that's gonna be cut. So that was another point I had. And so just the program fees, the long-term relationships of role models, the long-term value that our kids are getting out of trying new experiences like drama camp that they may not have otherwise been able to, keeping families in this demographic from not wanting to leave or from affecting new people who come here. Like, what do we as a village have to offer people who are interested in coming here? And just how important it is. I mean, I'm on the PTO, so I'm involved in the school. I see these kids on a regular basis, and I just feel like whether you have kids who attend the playground program or not, it's just something that we should all really care about.
Thank you.
And that's my spiel.
Carmen Mascarella, Sebda? There we go.
Thank you very much for the time to speak. I am Carmen Sepsta, formerly Mascarella. I'm a resident of the village. tonight. I'm here representing a group of moms, friends that have united because of Fredonia and our children attending the UPK program. Now they are much older, but they do utilize the recreation program. Parents in this area were shocked, dismayed, to learn about the possibility of the group recreational program that may be cut or eliminated. Threatening to cut the program entirely or even reduce the amount of space and supervision available is an enormous detriment to this community. There is already so little that families with young children have access to in exchange for the outrageous taxes. What draw does a community have for growing families? It is surely not the endless water debate or the failure of our leadership throughout the years to agree on what's best for our future. At this tax rate, they could live in a community with beautiful schools, facilities, sports fields, or in more recreational opportunities. Leadership needs to focus on how to entice and support these families as they are the future to our area. The Observer indicated that 3 positions were cut from the program, as well as reducing to 2 playgrounds. While we don't disagree that the amount of playgrounds could be reduced, we have a concern about 2 playgrounds. Lambert area playground is utilized by many families along Central Avenue. Several of these families have children who ride their bikes and go home for lunch since there are no counselors during lunch. These students wouldn't be able to do that with the 2 proposed playgrounds at this time. So this is more children and a reduction of staff. Is the board aware of New York State regulations for camp supervision? Under the New York State Department of Health regulations, Section 7, 2.5, labeled personnel supervision and camp safety. In quotes, at a summer day or traveling summer day camp, the general ratio of counselors to children is 1 to 12. Fredonia's population is changing. It includes more families that require and benefit from a safe summer program. Children need adequate supervision and stimulated in a safe environment. In the past, the program has provided opportunities to explore sports, nature, and other areas of interest. It has allowed our teens and young adults to serve as staff members and role models prior to entering the workforce. The lessons and clubs offered have not only fostered new interests for children, but have supported and promoted small businesses by allowing families the opportunity to trial a program, such as karate, prior to signing up for lessons in the fall. In light of these recent proposals, my group of moms have these questions. Have numbers been evaluated? How many children attended the program in the last summers on average? The same children have to go to 2 playgrounds with less space, less supervision. Will the 1 to 12 ratio be honored with the recent cuts? Recent observations by us have included questionable individuals hanging out at these parks, as well as hypodermic needles. This suggests a need for increased supervision, not a decrease. Question 3, will the money saved on the program provide the answers needed, or was this just an easy target? 4, will a focus group or committee be formed to help resolve the issues? Many tax-paying families are concerned and interested in solutions before cutting the program. And finally, will there be a cap imposed on the program to ensure adequate safety and supervision? Will this include a sign-in, sign-out so that children are accounted for? This has never been a past practice. I appreciate your time in listening to the concerns, and I truly hope that the proposed cuts of the recreation program reviewed. I encourage the board and community to begin to unite on many of these issues that the village faces, to stop seeking financial solutions at the expense of our children, so that young families like us choose to continue to live in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Scott.
At the February 20th board meeting, I spoke about the numerous proposals to raise the water rate in the past and stated that I could not honestly argue against a $2 increase requested at that time. In the trustee report time, a trustee gave a cost breakdown of the 7 components that I used to try and verify. I disclosed my analysis in a letter to the People's column on March 11th, stating that it appears that the majority of the second $2 increase would go to make up the lost revenue requiring the $8.95 rate suggested back on February 20th, and again, couldn't argue against it. Now it is reported that the proposed rate for the new budget year will be $7 per thousand, with a $5 increase in the base charge. With 3,061 residential units and 1,423 commercial, business, industrial accounts, that $20 a year increase in the base rate would produce $89,680, coupled with the $11,420 and the 5-cent increase would provide a total of $101,100. This is a far cry from the flat $2 increase projected to be needed on February 20th. What has baffled me, however, is the Treasury report for January showed a $439,000 loss in water and $348,000 loss in sewer for a total loss of $787,000. Report for February was $564,000 loss in water, $545,000 loss in sewer for a total of $1,110,200. Finally, in the budget workshop held this past Wednesday, April 10th, a trustee said at the 8-minute 40-second mark that there is some good news, as between the funds it shows less than $250,000 loss between the two. Did I misunderstand that statement? Or better yet, where did the $860,000 gain come from, and can we duplicate that again this month? I'm becoming less confident in what I'm told. As for reducing this reserve balance fund to 10% from 15%, that speaks to me that we are not going to see anything concrete in correcting our water crisis in this budget year, and that it would probably be waiting to 2024-25 to enter into any agreements. This probably means a lost construction season and no respite from conservation or boil order waters for another 2+ years. It also says to expect another large tax increase next year, as your plan is to replenish the fund then to get the rating back up. This sounds like kicking the can down the road, and where have I heard that phrase come up before in the village? I do not envy your position and the perfect storm that you have inherited, but all the talk that I've heard is centered on the current new fiscal year only. Has any thought been given to the future, a 3 or 5-year plan, for example, to identify items before they occur? I believe the village could become more proactive in regards to the finances rather than reactive. We would all be in a better place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Alicia Bernecki.
Hi, Village Board. I'm Alicia Tilburg Bernecki, and I am a resident of Fredonia. I have 2 young children who have went through the rec program, and I also work for a small business in the area that is family owned. I have talked to my husband, who we've been together 21 years. We are high school sweethearts. We graduated from Fredonia High School. We've been very much a part of this community our entire life. Many times we've been asked, why do you still live there? And we always say it's the community. It's the people that are sitting right here, the people that care about where we live. There's people who go around and clean up all the trash that people throw out their windows. There's not a lot of communities that do that, but our community does. Our community goes out and decorates for Christmas to make it look nice when people come in from out of town that haven't been here for 20 years and they want to come see their great aunt. They come here and they see how beautiful this place can be. Those same people are people who left and they come back. It's like we're making it look like it's a great place to be. But there's so many cracks in our foundation, we can't live like this. It's not fair to our future. I'm looking at it thinking, well, this might be the last place as a home in Fredonia. My kids probably won't stay here. They're gonna have so many more opportunities even 50 minutes down the road. That's not why we stayed here. We stayed here to build our family because it's safe. We came here and we stayed here instead of going anywhere we could have went. My husband works for a location that is 600 miles away, and he's remote. He's right now on a plane to go do things for his job, but he chooses to work remotely here. We could have moved, but we didn't. this is the problem I'm having is in the summertime, I work for a very small family-owned business. I don't make a ton of money because, yes, I chose that, but it's also a business that helps everyone in this room. I can't keep doing things to go, oh, well, I'm going to have to pay $300 this week to drop one of my kids off at one of the camps. But if I want both of them to go, it's going to be like over $700. I don't have $700 every week to pour in to one club. There is a science thing that they can sign up for 1 week, and that's the only week they provide it. There is a basketball camp that is 1 week, and it's only 1 week. The rest of the summer's up to the parents. And I am a parent that takes care of my children, and I look after them, and I am very much a hoverer. Like, I want to make sure they're safe. And I know when I take them to that program at the rec center, I know that those kids are going to be, one, making friends with kids they probably wouldn't see because they're not the same kids in their 6th grade class or their 5th grade class. They're kids that are the 4th graders that are coming up into the middle school transition that Fredonia's in. And they're all communicating. And when we're adults, we all communicate with each other because we have to. It's teaching them how to communicate with other age groups. And it's super important. And it's important to me because it helps me be able to do my job for a few hours in the morning and a few hours in the afternoon. I have to pick them up for lunch. I have time with them at lunch. They go back and they are exhausted at the end of the day because they are out playing. They're being active. We talk about kids gaining weight and all these obese issues that we're having. We don't need to have that. If we have this program, the kids are running around and playing with each other and being exhausted like we were when we were growing up. We played till the sun went down in the summer. And this is giving the opportunity for these children to continue to make those memories that Sarah and all the other moms here made when they were their age. That's why we stayed here. That's why Sarah and her husband came back. They wanted the community. And this is a special place. Please keep it a special place because there's a lot of other issues that I know are not your faults, but you're in a position that you have to make choices and you have to make decisions. And please don't do it where our children are involved because they are our future. And if you really want this to just be a retirement community, you're doing a really good job. And that's the problem. We don't want it to be where all of the young families leave, because then what happens? There's nobody there to be. My kids are out there helping when we did the cleanups. My kids also helped put all the things out for Christmas time. I involve them in all this because I show them that community is important. And if we can't show them that by letting them have fun and be together and learn from other kids, they're going to go out and do stupid things. They're all going to learn different things that you don't want them to learn because there's going to be those parents that still send them to the playgrounds when nobody's there to watch them. And then there's a mom like me that's going to be there with my children so they have time. And I'm going to be feeling like I'm responsible for the other 15 kids that are there because the parents just dropped them off. That's not fair to me. That's not fair to my kids. And those kids needed the counselors because their parents aren't there to watch them. So please, if anything, find somewhere else to cut because this is not it. Thank you.
Nick Miller?
My name is Nick Muller. I'm a property owner here in Fredonia. Me and my wife bought a lot on Ryan Place with every intention of building our forever dream home in this village. So no, I didn't grow up in this village like many of you. I chose to come here because I saw a community. I saw a plot of land that I could build my forever home and raise my family at. However, I don't know if that's going to happen now because after over 2 years of planning, saving, preparations, having blueprints drawn up, money spent, at the final minute, taxes are proposed to be raised again. And where I'm originally from, taxes are high. I'm originally from closer to New York City originally, where my family is from. The funny thing is, Fredonia actually has higher tax rate than villages in Westchester County, Suffolk, and Nassau County in Long Island. That is insane to me. Those villages offer so much more. They offer so much more. And it's crazy to me. This proposed 19% increase, whatever it ends up being, even if it's not a full 19, is still disrespectful to the people of this village, who already pay astronomical taxes. And for what? What are we offered? What are we offered? I honestly don't know. Why is it up to the residents of this village, property owners, homeowners, to have to foot the bill for the village's mismanagement of funds? It makes no sense to me. And as such, I don't have to ask myself a very, very difficult and important question with my wife. Am I going to build this home forever? Am I going to build the home that I planned to retire in, to die in essentially, to live here for the rest of my life, raise a family in? That is a question I don't have the answer to today, but I'm leaning towards no. I'm leaning towards selling my property and leaving. And I know it won't matter to anyone in this room sitting on this side, but I'll be taking my tax revenues with me. And a number of other people will be too. If you continue to raise taxes at the rate that has been raised, have people paying what they pay, I promise you people will leave this village in droves. I am the young family that some people have spoken of. And I question whether or not I want to be here. My parents live in this village. I just spoke to them not an hour ago. They question whether they're going to stay. They love their home, they love this community. They do not love the amount they have to pay to live here. You want to keep people in this village, you want to collect tax revenue from them, I understand it. Everyone has to pay. That is not lost on me. I understand that. But when a small village of less than 10,000 people pays more than communities in Westchester County, in Nassau and Suffolk County, and not just dollar amounts, also percentage, it makes no sense. Because we don't have half the services they have. We don't offer the schools they have, and yet we pay more. I've been thinking on this since this information came out, and I've been trying to make sense of it, and I struggle. What I will say is this, and I'll leave it at this. I'm going to strongly suggest that all of you reconsider the increase, because if you do go forward with it, you will essentially have killed this town. It is on its last legs already. It is on borrowed time, and decisions have to be made, and you're making the wrong ones. I pray you make the right decisions.
Mark Twitchell.
You know, for a board that has based a lot of its decisions on what our future water is, on the reliability of getting grants, this 19% tax increase, even if it's reduced by a few percentages, is just going to be a real kick in the teeth. Now, since I disagree, and you all know that I disagree entirely with the decision this board is making on the water decision, maybe that's a good thing. You're not going to be able to get the money that you want to get to draw down the reservoir, demolish the treatment plant, install the infrastructure to get water from Dunkirk, and purchase the water from Dunkirk. Your bond rating is going to go down the tubes. Now, there is some good news here. You have, I'm sure you're going to approve the tax cap increase, and I don't see how you can avoid that. However, a double-digit tax increase is just unconscionable. If you wanted to say, we're going to increase our taxes by 5% because that's the rate of inflation that we're dealing with when we buy, materials for the plant, or when we, have to pay ever increasing labor costs, that's defensible. As I understand it, the tax cap is 3 point something. So if you go to 5, hey, we could all understand that. But going double digits, especially when the playground program is in jeopardy, and I'm happy to hear that perhaps there is some hope that it can be resurrected. That gets to like, well, what savings are you proposing? You're going to apparently, from what I could gather looking at the budget, there might be maybe $20,000 saved by chopping the playground program, but then I see that there's a part-time clerk for the fire department who's only been there a year. This is a job that the fire department was entirely capable of doing themselves, and now we're sacrificing the kids for a part-time clerk. That is just one example of things that I saw in the budget. I'm seeing pay raises that maybe are, although they are above, the 3%, 4%, the pay raises may be well earned. However, they appear to be based on the increase of hours that the employees are capable of working, and that is outside of their job description. And this board needs to pass a resolution. If you're going to change the job description of village employees, you need to pass a resolution. Again, another example of how this board operates. It does things, and then it goes back and says, oh, wait a minute, maybe we should have done this. So I understand it's complicated, but I really believe that you can do better. Thank you.
Greg Lauer.
Good evening. My name is Greg Lauer. I live at 15 Viola Drive in the Village. I'm also the assistant principal and athletic director at the high school. My wife and I have been residents here for 15 years. We met in college and decided to come back here, get jobs at the school. She works at the middle school, and we felt this was a great place to raise our kids. I also had the privilege of serving on the Parks and Rec Commission back when there was one, around 2015, with Tom Battaglia, Dave Jambrone, and Roger Pecos. I'm here tonight to address the proposed cuts to the summer recreation program that you discussed last week. And I am hoping that you reconsider. I thought the ladies did a fantastic job kind of outlining it, and I apologize if some of this is kind of a repeat. But my kids both went through it. I have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old, so they're pretty much phased out of the rec department program. But over the course of these 15 years I've lived here, I've continually seen the positive things in this village decrease steadily. And now one of the lone bright spots that our youth have in this community, like the summer rec program, is looking to be hit pretty hard. One of the key features of the summer rec program is, in fact, that we offer programs at most of our neighborhood parks. Okay, I know someone did speak tonight and say that they'd be okay with it going down to 1 or 2 parks, and I think that would be a humongous mistake. I think there's a false sense that parents can get their kids here even though it's a 5-mile radius, and that's not the case. A lot of kids, especially our own, were ones that, because we worked in the summer, they needed to get there, needed to walk there, needed to ride their bikes there. Their older siblings helped take them there. I think keeping all of the parks open and letting the current rec director that you are choosing to hire be the case for stocking those parks with the adequate supervision would be the right way to go. So I think keeping 5 or 6 different locations would be an absolute must in terms of keeping our rec department and our program exactly where it should be. It's just too much to ask for parents to drop their kids off at 9, pick them up at 12, drop them back off at 1, and pick them up at 4 again, as we just don't have enough that can do that. In the role that I currently am at, I get to see firsthand what kids not doing things, sitting at home on their cell phones, not being active and participating with other kids, what that can do to them. The social emotional issues that we deal with every day, as some of the people here also are teachers, and that we see of these kids, is due to the fact that they are sitting at home, not having that interaction all the time. And by cutting the parks down to 1 or 2 parks, you're going to eliminate a lot of these kids that are able to get there. The Russell Joy Park was extremely crowded last year. And I think having the smaller setting gives our younger youth a chance to really connect with these high school kids. I work with high school kids every day. I know they hire outstanding people to work in these parks. And my own son just the last few years connected really well with a lot of these high school kids. And I think that would be a big mistake in terms of not giving them the chance. If there's 10, 15 kids at Gardner Street, you know, with a couple workers, that really helps them build a relationship while they're at that park together. So I implore you here to please empower the rec director that you are going to hire, whether it's tonight or next week, to make these decisions. I know the person that you're looking at to hire in this position has done this before, has worked with a lot of the counselors that they're going to be looking to hire, has built a program up in the past years that they have done it, and they could do a very good job. So again, I please ask you, don't cut the staff, don't cut the parks, and keep everything open. Thank you.
Thank you. James Linden.
Good evening, I'm James Linden. The mayor is supposed to be our chief financial officer. He put together a budget for this year with a 19% tax increase, the highest ever requested in the Village of Fredonia, to be proposed to the trustees and to the people of this village. It's unfortunate that he tried blaming the previous boards for the not raising taxes every year in the past. Well, that's a failure to understand how budgets are done. We don't raise taxes just to build bank. You have your budget that you try to stay within in order, and if you have to go over it, reasonably over it, you try to stay within the tax cap. That being said, I watched your budget meetings, not because this village was being transparent about it, but because we had a community member who decided he would take it upon himself and video it and put it on YouTube for the benefit of the people of this community. The budget where they brought it down to, and they patted themselves on the back for, was down to 13% tax increase. I'm not going to pat anybody on the back for that. You said you had to make some tough choices. Tough choices is not taking out our youth program. It is not taking out that recreational program that means so much to this community. Dismantling it. What I see is, as I reviewed the budget, and as a previous former trustee, I know these budgets. I find that beyond the 13, where you brought it down to 13%, I could find another $500,000 in this budget where you could cut it, and I mean tough choices. Tough choices may not be the high proposed wage increases for most of your department heads, some higher than what was even 3%. You have programs, or actually you've put in the budget removing people from their jobs in the code department and putting in a very high-priced, unilaterally moved fireman into that position for more than about $100,000 increase in that department. You have for the fire department, you have 17 employees. It said 2 new, where in last year's budget there was only 16. So apparently there's new hires being made in this village. There's, like I said, that move with the firemen, that was not you have to have a charter change in order to make that happen. You can't just put it in the budget and say this is what we're going to do. And you did the same thing with the village clerk and the treasurer. You boosted their hours from 35 to 40. Those departments were 35 hours. Their pay increases were astronomical. Those are not hard choices. Those are just some of the changes that you could have made. You know, there's For some reason, there was one thing that I wondered why you didn't add in. You took out the travel training for the code department, the planning board. That's a requirement. They have to have a certain amount of hours per year. Maybe they could do it online, maybe they can't. But when I was on the planning board years ago, we had to travel for that. You remove that, the ability to do that. That was only $500. It wasn't a whole lot. So anyhow, but there's many other places. You have legal, over 105,000. So, you know, you could easily take out a couple, 10,000 out of there. I go through this budget and I could point out tens of thousands in many areas and just a few thousand or 1,000 here and there, totaling close to $500,000. Now, yes, you will have to make some tough choices. Your tough choices will be, you really, in order to get down to that 3.1%, you will have to not give your department heads raises. Well, because in my opinion, when you have a budget presented, that all of these department heads have to come before the mayor prior to his plan. And if they're going to present a budget to the mayor that has that type of increase to them, they don't deserve pay increases. Not to this public, not to the people who pay these taxes. I know it can be done. Like I said, if you bring it down, another $500,000 would probably do it pretty darn close, and keep us under the tax cap. Because if without staying under the tax cap, it was mentioned earlier, the bond rating is going to tank. Okay, you guys want to borrow money, but you know, at what cost? Your debt service right now is fairly high. Pay down your debt service. Maybe next year stay at the tax cap again. Maybe next year your department heads could get a raise. See? Yeah, there's just so much more. Let's see if I got any more in there. Oh, if you go over the tax cap, you're in jeopardy of losing your state aid also. You lose state aid, you're going to end up the possibility of losing state aid. That's another at least $89,000 there out of the budget next year. So then you're going to be in trouble again. So then you're going to raise taxes even more. So where's it going to end? See, if you don't take control of this now, really do the hard choices, not getting rid of the recreational program. I mean, that is, you know, that's such a small amount of money for such a great benefit to this community. But for these other things that you need to take care of, you need to look into the future. Where are you going to be? Your water and sewer, your sewer. Why are you raising the rates on the sewer? You have a higher, your fund balance for your sewer department is over the 25%. Why do you take the people's money when you don't need to? If you're going to, you plan on lowering the fund balance between a 10 and 25% increments. Well, right now you're over 25%. You utilize that fund balance that people have already paid to bring it down within those areas so you don't have to have a rate increase on your sewer. You've already increased the rates on the water, and now you're looking for another rate increase. And you're putting on both of them, you're putting a base fee increase. That's unnecessary. The water rates of which you've already increased is actually, in my opinion, more than you need right now. You're going to make a decision on what you've already made a decision which you're ready to go, but I think it's the wrong decision. It's going to cost us tens of millions of dollars to go with the Dunkirk water system over the next 30 years, above fixing our own system and buying our own water. That would be above that, tens of millions. That's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Richard Leon.
I'll try to be brief because I don't have a whole lot of things to go on. I just went through and I had just a few questions, a couple of questions on revenue, a couple of questions on personnel costs, a couple of suggestions, small ones. First, on revenues. As I went down through and looking at the revenue estimates for the ambulance service, and their estimated revenue for last year was $800,000, so this year is $800,000. The year prior was $400,000 and change. Now, the actual for last year was $400,000 and some odd change. So it appears that for some reason, the revenue estimate for ambulance services got doubled. What that does is two things. Number one, it reduces the need for finding other revenue, taxes. And number two, it leaves you a major hole at the end of the year in your general fund, because I think that's where that revenue goes. Why it got raised last year, I don't know. If it hadn't, very likely you probably would have had to talk about a tax increase last year. So, the second thing is water revenues. From my calculation, it looks like you're estimating a 34% increase in revenues this year. We increased the rates 41%. Why isn't our projected increase 41%? In other words, it's a significant number of dollars. Personnel costs, two things. I went down through and I'm looking, the list of employees for the fire department was a question, somebody else had raised it. That last year there were 16 employees, but the mix was significantly different in terms of the list that's appended to the bottom of the budget as it comes out. This year, there's 17 employees, but the type of employees are reduced. We have more firemen by one, more EMTs by one, 2 more part-timers from 2 to 4, and the chief. Now, those are reasonable figures. You have 24/7 coverage. You need, 2 EMTs each shift, 2 firemen each shift, part-timers to take over for weekends and holidays and when people aren't around vacation or whatever. So, it's a reasonable load as far as I'm concerned in terms of personnel. My question is, the list at the end of the budget shows, if I remember correctly, $110,000, or $1,210,000 roughly for total wages. Personnel costs in the budget, when you add up personnel for fire and personnel for ambulance, comes out to $1,314,000 or $24,000. So there's a significant difference between the list at the bottom that shows total wages by person and the personnel costs in the budget. I just wonder what that's from. Other than that, I have no real quibble with any of the major issues going on, and other than I agree that some of the wage increases that we're looking at maybe, I understand, from being in prior positions like that where, you're living in 10% inflation times 3% of a raise increase isn't a whole lot. Well, it's true, and perhaps it's necessary to give a little bit higher wage increases to keep good people. There was two things. One thing, that I wanted to talk about is a possible addition to the budget. I don't see anything going on in terms of new projects for the water treatment facility other than maintenance to the existing plant. I don't see any of the project, anything in terms of project planning, even preliminary project planning. I think what we need to do is get into that. Now, that can be done without a whole lot of budgetary coverage, budgetary appropriation. But what we do need is we really, really need to get someone in-house writing grants. And I would suggest, and I know it's been mentioned, well, Labella can do this, Labella can do that. Well, Labella is going to charge you, a lot of money for that. I would suggest maybe give some thought to going out and hiring someone on contract, part-time, on a 1099 basis, pay them $30,000 a year for a day a week, and a percentage of whatever they bring in. I think you might find a lot of people interested, good qualified people interested in a position like that. And then what we have the ability to start moving forward, looking for grants immediately. You mentioned, Mr. Mayor, at one of the other meetings, billions of dollars in federal funds available, millions of dollars in state funds available, and we've done nothing about that. We need to get onto that, and I think that would be a good way to go. For an additional $25,000, $30,000 a year, base pay to somebody, you could probably start generating some significant funds. The only other thing I've got to say is on the tax increase itself, everybody hates taxes. I'm a rock-ribbed Republican tax hater from way back. But I look at this tax increase, at 19%, it would have cost me $250 for my increase in village taxes. At 13%, it's $200. It's not life-threatening. It's not going to drive me out of the village. The village tax is the lowest of the three taxes we pay by a significant amount. And, most of it is well spent, going through. And it's been tough. And it has been avoided. And it probably should not have been avoided by prior boards and prior administrations. So all I'm saying is, maybe cut the mayor a break on the tax increase. It could very likely be necessary. If we can get it down a little bit more, fine, but, let's cut everybody a break here. This is not, Armageddon. This is not apocalyptic. We're not going to, have people leaving in trains going out the door, away from the village. Not for this kind of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Ludwig.
Much of what I'm going to say is going to be redundant, but you need to hear it again. I, too, am shocked by the double-digit tax increase. I'm disappointed that the village is cutting playground programs in order to save $22,000. As an educator in this community for the last 40 years now, I've seen how valuable these summer playground programs are. And there must be other ways to save the village money besides closing 2 playgrounds for the summer. Other people have outlined some things that are very practical. Trustee Linden, former Trustee Linden, gave you a number of things. But the village department head salaries are listed on the budget document. Maybe some of you have seen it. And I know these folks work hard, but the trustees owe it to the village taxpayers to at least have a conversation with the department heads regarding cost-saving measures. Maybe village employees would be willing to take a little less in pay raises if they knew it would save playgrounds for our kids. Our community heroes could be even bigger heroes in the eyes of our children and their parents, maybe if they took a little less in pay raises. Has this conversation happened? If it hasn't, it should. Like I said, you owe it to the taxpayers to at least try to find some cost-saving measures in that area. Former Trustee Linden gave you a number of other ways that you could save some money and easily keep all these playgrounds open. So I want to change gears for a second, and I want to talk about village water. I sat through the water presentation at the Opera House last week, and while the presentation was informative in certain areas, the question and answer portion was a farce. Important questions were filtered, perhaps never presented to the panel, and certainly were left unanswered. Panel members at one point stated that they're not engineers and thus unqualified to answer certain questions, but then these same panel members proceeded to provide very biased opinions on technical engineering concerns with our reservoir and water. One panel member talked about repurposing the reservoir. I don't know how that would come up unless it was already decided maybe. Another panel member indicated that Fredonia would not be able to provide enough water to support the new hospital if it were ever to be built unless we do something about Fredonia's water system. And Mayor Ferguson quickly took to the stage to do damage control, but the credibility of all involved took a hit. And one has to wonder where else this panel member has made biased and incorrect statements. I sure hope people in Albany weren't listening to our water presentation to hear one of your panel members say that we wouldn't be able to provide water for the hospital in Fredonia unless we do something. And of course, the something that was implied was to buy water from Dunkirk. And while the panel did do a great job comparing our outdated and neglected reservoir, water treatment plant, and dam to a brand new Dunkirk facility, the panel never addressed how an upgraded dam, water treatment plant, and reservoir would compare with the Dunkirk system. I mean, we already knew that the Fredonia water delivery system needed upgrades. What the community really needs is overwhelming evidence to convince this board that what the Labella report clearly states is the best option for Fredonia water. But none of the scientists last week would speak about that. They didn't want to weigh in on the Labella study because they're not engineers. I certainly would hope that scientists and experts could read the charts on the summary page of the Labella report and render a decision about the most cost-effective water option for Fredonia over the next 30 years, and that is to upgrade our water treatment dam and reservoir. But it was apparent that the reason for the panel in the first place was to sway people by way of fear-mongering that Fredonia's only water option is to buy water from Dunkirk. So why do I bring this up at this point in time? Your budget's a mess. It's only going to get worse if you buy water from Dunkirk. You produce water for less than it costs to buy it from Dunkirk, and then you sell it. That gives you a profit. It brings in revenue. That's why you raise water rates, like somebody else mentioned. You brought in more revenue. If you buy water from Dunkirk for more than you can produce it for, you're going to lose revenue. How are you going to address that loss of revenue in future budgets if we buy water from Dunkirk? You need to listen to all these knowledgeable people. Trustee Linden, for example, giving you some great ideas on how to save some money. We need to do that, keep the playgrounds open, and make the best water decision for Fredonia, which is going to save us tens of millions of dollars over the next 30 years.
Athanasia Landis.
Thank you. My name is Athanasia Landis. So for the first time in the village's history, the Board of Trustees has proposed a 13% property tax increase, 6 points down from the mayor's 19 original proposal, I know that. $5 increase of the water base charge, and then an 18% sewer rate increase. All this on top of a 40% water rates increase that has been recently approved and implemented. I'm sure you all know that Fredonia has a poverty rate of 21%. How do you think these people are going to pay for everything that you're asking them from? There are more than a few senior citizens and many young families desperately trying to make ends meet. Looking at your budget, I cannot help but noticing that your water fund balance is over 25% and the sewer over 50%. Why do you keep raising rates when you have more than enough money to cover expenses and have an adequate fund balance? The sewer fund is operating in the black and has a projected operating increase in revenue. Did you not just pass a resolution regarding the fund balance having to be no less than 10% and no more than 25%? Again, your sewer balance, fund balance is over 50%. What are you planning to do with the extra money? The fund balance is not a savings account. This is not a business. It's a municipality. The fund balance is there so that local governments avoid raising taxes and utility rates. You're supposed to use it. As you know, you cannot use money from the sewer fund to pay for any other expenses than the sewer fund. So once again, why do you keep raising rates, and what are you planning to do with the extra money? And please don't keep saying that you are the heroes here who are doing what previous administrations did not. I'm very proud of the fact that we did not have to raise taxes. You see, we had enough money to spare our citizens the kind of hardship that this budget will put them through. Municipal budgets are more than just numbers. They reflect priorities. They reflect principles and vision. Many years ago, the people of this village authorized mayor and trustees to put them into great debt in order to secure what we now know as SUNY Fredonia. That's what vision is all about. I also noticed something else, and maybe I don't understand it. You building inspector. You got rid of a position that paid $19,000, and you created a position that paid $100,000. How is this saving us any money? As I said, maybe I don't understand it. The actions of your budget, that your budget is proposing, will drive people out of this area and potentially will bankrupt the village. So here's an original idea. Instead of doing any of this, cut spending. And no, I do not mean the recreational department. However, the possibilities in your budget are endless. Thank you.
Jill Kuhn. Sorry.
That's okay. Hi, my name is Jill Keene. I'm from Fredonia, New York. I was born and raised here all my life. I recognize some of the faces. I don't have anything in particular I want to say. I'm just winging it. And I worked for the county. I retired from the county. I'm considered one of the senior citizens now of this area. And there are a lot of senior citizens, that live in this area who are on a fixed income, including myself. And just looking at this budget and seeing it, when I worked for the county, some years I didn't get a raise. Some years it was 1%, maybe 2%, 3%. I don't know if I heard it 3%, but you know what? It was my choice. If I didn't feel like I was, as our fire chief said, he's worth 12%. If I would have thought, well, I'm worth 12%, well, I could have left and gone somewhere else. I didn't have to stay. I know in Florida, they pay their fire chiefs what he's looking for. It's just ridiculous. I don't think anybody should be getting a raise. We shouldn't be spending and hiring like crazy. I know when I left the county, they dispersed my position. They cut it up into pieces to everybody else. My position was dissolved. Granted, I was only a peon, but I still have a retirement, and I'm on a fixed income. And I can't afford these raises. I mean, even 10% is too much. Everybody else lives on a budget. Everybody else has hard times. I am assuming you guys live on a budget. If people don't like what they're making, they can go somewhere else. That's your choice. As far as the water, I'm shifting gears because I'm doing this off the top of my head. Somebody left their phone here. My grandmother lived in Dunkirk. I used to go there with my mother in the summer, and I go, Mom, why does the water taste like fish? Dunkirk water always was horrible the whole time I was growing up, and this is back in the 60s when I was a child. So, and then going through them is like, why would we want to go through them? And then they can charge whatever they want to charge us in the future. By raising all these rates, by hiring all these positions, you're breaking the community, and the seniors as well as the young families, we won't be able to live here. If you're too busy, with salaries, I mean, it's very disappointing. It's very disappointing. I don't know what else to say. And the other thing I want to mention, at the department I worked for, we always did grants. We got a lot of money through grants. So the point he made about grants, it's true. They're out there. Go for it. Those are options. There's other options. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes this portion of public hearing, right? It's okay, you don't have to sign in for
Hi,
your last one.
somebody left their cell phone up here. My name is Jeff Nickerson. I agree with a lot of what people are saying here. I moved into the village in 2000. I moved down here from Arkwright. I rented from a couple places. Now I own my own house. It's bought and paid for up on Spring Street. Love living here. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to be staying here much longer. 19% is quite a drastic increase. And to come back with a 13%, I think it's kind of like going and buying a car. They offer you this, you counter offer, you come back with a lower offer, you counter offer again, buying a house. 19%, even if it's 13%, I think it's too much. I don't get nothing. I've lived in my house for 20 years this April. In those 20 years, I think I've called the village, I think probably 6-7 times because they forget to plow my street. I very rarely see a sidewalk plow. I clear the sidewalk for myself and my neighbors. I do my driveway, I do my neighbor's driveway, all winter long. I don't see a sidewalk plow. And when they do come by, it's a mess. I don't know if the guy even drops the blade. You know, up here, we don't get nothing for our tax dollar. I know I'm comparing apples to oranges. My mother-in-law, my family, my married family, my wife is all from Louisiana. My mother-in-law lives in a $300,000 beautiful home on 3.5 acres. She pays $500 a year in taxes, everything. She gets her garbage picked up. She gets sprayed for mosquitoes. And every fall, the kids in that school down there get a new tablet to start the school, and they get pencils and everything they need. Our teachers have to give out a list of what for the kids to bring in. Everything from crayons to papers to pencils to tissues, because we can't afford to give it to them. And then you guys want to take away the rec area. I'm sorry, I'm looking at you guys, but I should be looking at you guys. You know, that was something new to me. I'm sitting here tonight. I didn't know you guys wanted to take away the rec area for these kids. I'm retired from the Department of Corrections, 26 years. You want to, you know, Hochul is closing all of our prisons. There's no place for the prisoners to go, and you want to take away the places for these kids to go. I'll guarantee you, you take away these kids places to go, especially in the summertime when there's no school, and they have nowhere to go, their parents aren't home, and they have nothing to do. Idle minds lead to crime. And our police force here is great. I love them. But they can't be everywhere every minute of the day, especially at night. Now, even where I live, up there, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I got people walking through my neighborhood that don't belong there. They got their hoodies up. They're walking through. They're casing the place. They're looking. And New York State has a, what do they call it, squatters thing. You can squat in somebody's house now. Yeah. There's a lot of empty houses here in the village. Who's gonna, you know, I'll be God, and I'm sorry, I don't want to swear, but I'm almost to it. If I find a squatter in my house, he's gone. I won't be needing the cops. All right, that's just the way I am. But I'll tell you what, I've seen a lot of kids, they have gone to crime, they've gone into prison. And I've heard them say, we had nothing to do. We're out on the streets all night long. Our parents aren't home. They get into drugs. They get into stealing, into whatever. So give these kids something to do. Make a rec center for them. Do something. These kids are our future. And you want to pull the rec area away? That's wrong. For what, 22,000 somebody said? You know? And give the money to the police department. Let them do their jobs. Give them you know, I'm all in favor of that. We have, the law enforcement is great, but we need more law enforcement. A fire department, I'll be honest with you. I remember the Fredonia Fire Department since I quit in 2012. I didn't want to be a part of it no more. I'll be honest with you. There's more money in that department down there than you shake a stick at. All right? Every month we go to monthly meetings. We hold them down in the basement. Then we go upstairs to our individual companies, which I thought was kind of stupid anyway. It's one big department, one big happy family. So I thought, no. All right? There's more money in that department down there than you can shake a stick at. Now, I've seen just recently they brought together all the companies, made it one, finally. All right? I've been an EMT since 1990. I belong to Forestville. I belong to some other departments downstate.
Sir, could you stop tapping the mic?
I think it's shaking.
I'm just revved up, you know. Sorry about that. So anyway, long story short, I don't mean to ramble. I think it's wrong. All right. I don't want to leave here. I like it here. I like to change the seasons. But everything in New York is getting jacked up, from the taxes to where I live. And we don't get nothing for what we pay, even though it's minimal compared to some of the people like you. Westchester County, I've lived in Westchester County. I worked at Sing Sing for a year and a half. I rented down there. My rent down there costs more than my mortgage. So I know where he's coming from. But give it a second thought. I can understand 5%, but 19 down to 13. I'm not buying a car here. I'm living in the village. I'd like to stay, but I'm moving. If it keeps doing it, I'm moving. My water tastes like crap. I can't get no water. Right now I'm on a conservative water. Probably getting ready to boil water, right? So that's all I have to say. But I'm ticked, is what it is. And that's all I got. I have nothing formal to say, but I won't be living here much longer if we keep doing this. So thank you.
Somebody left their phone up on the dais? Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Pardon?
Sam.
Yeah, we had 2 lists. We had one for the next meeting, but if you need to speak now, go ahead.
Do you want me to speak at the next meeting?
You can speak now.
Sam, we love hearing you, Sam. So. Yeah, we like it.
Go, Sam, go.
I have 2 topics. Well, Sam Drayo, village resident, lived here all my life. Plan on staying here for the rest of my life. The board, this has to do, first of all, with the planning board. I think we're underutilizing our village planning board. The board has recently had presentations from county persons regarding changes to Water Street and to potential changes to New York State DOT that runs through the village. Before any letters of recommendation are written by the village on these matters, they need to be referred to the village planning board for study and report back their recommendations. This can help avoid mistakes and oversights that can easily happen. I found when I was village attorney that they were an asset to the village. I believe the village still has jurisdiction over Water Street traffic, although some responsibilities such as snow plowing have been given to the county. As far as I remember, Water Street is the village street with certain responsibilities given by agreement to the county. The village should adopt a resolution as soon as possible, giving the planning board authority to review some of these issues. And the one now in front of you is Water Street and DOT. The second item I'd like to discuss is I read in the Observer that the building inspector and code enforcement responsibilities may be transferred to the fire department. I would not make that change. We have a building inspector's office and the code enforcement officer is a civil service position. He's a person appointed by law and our village code to issue building permits and to enforce the village zoning law, housing code, and New York State Building Construction Code, as well as our electrical code and subdivision regulations. Code Enforcement Office also meets with the zoning board and planning board on many issues. Our village and state codes refer to zoning enforcement officer and building inspector or code enforcement officer, not the fire department or firemen. The fire department can assist the code enforcement officer where needed. Fire alarms, fire extinguishers, things that might help prevent fires. But the main person in charge of issuing permits and enforcing village building and housing and zoning codes is the village-appointed code enforcement officer and village-appointed building inspector. Those positions are specifically set forth in our code. As I mentioned, firemen can assist the village enforcement officer where appropriate, but the fire department and firemen are not mentioned in our village code as building inspectors or code enforcement officers, and they have no authority to enforce zoning and building and housing codes. I haven't heard of any village appointing a fireman to enforce village building and zoning codes. They may have a fire inspector, but I've never heard of a village that has delegated those responsibilities to the fire department. There's 520 villages in the state of New York. John, you mentioned 20 villages that you canvassed that have the fire department doing building code inspections. I don't know what they are, but I would check into those. I don't see any reason to change the structure of our building department. What I read in the paper will only create disorganization and confusion of responsibility. I represented the village in a number of zoning and planning board lawsuits. They call them Article 78 proceedings. And I think one of the reasons why I was successful was we spelled out exactly in our zoning ordinance who has the enforcement responsibilities. No one could question that because it was spelled out in black and white. So again, don't make that change. I think that's going to create confusion and disorganization. Thank you, Mayor. Board.
Thank you. Okay, that closes the public portion of the hearing, and we thank you all for being here. And we thank you for your comments. And as we made crystal clear in the beginning of this program, that we will be addressing and readdressing and reweighing the recreation program. Right. The last thing anybody at this board wants to do is take programming away from young people. As you said, it's one of the only things that we can offer some of our young people in the community. I will say that there has never been discussion of eliminating children's programs, ever. It was talking about consolidating some of the parks, and it was talking about consolidating the number of counselors. Obviously, we will sit down and we will address that again. And we will do what's best for you as a community, and we will do what's best for the young people in the community as well. Keep in mind that some of the programs that were mentioned aren't the summer recreation programs, like some of the camps and things of that nature. They're not included in the summer rec programs. They're separate programs that we're blessed to have in the community. And we're very blessed to have people that fund those programs. So we appreciate it. So rest assured that when we say we're going to readjust that and take a look at it, you have my promise that will be done. Okay? So this year's budget proposals includes the following. General fund revenue is $7,438,140. The general fund expenses were $7,655,908. The water fund revenue was $2,085,950. The water fund expenses was $2,207,781. Water sewer fund revenue was $2,094,000, and the sewer fund expenses were $2,036,098. The general fund balance includes a tax increase to $42.65 for 1,000 per 1,000, from $36.95 per 1,000. The village will be amending the fund balance policy this year down to between 10 and 15% of appropriations. Due to the multiple years of no tax increases or a few tax increases, the village has to play catch-up. The amount of income that could have previously been generated with smaller increases was almost $400,000. Having spoken to many mayors, not only in the state of New York, but also surrounding areas, 2 to 3% increases annually so that you don't get a kick in the mouth is what usually happens in most communities. That goes not only for village government costs, but also for things such as water. There have been many increases in the cost of operation to maintain services that the residents receive, and this adjustment has to be made within the budget. The budget includes $134,000 in capital costs from local funds. The general fund has a budgeted revenue that is up $413,911. $327,514, which will be generated from tax revenue. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. There were too many commas in there. The expenses then increased $499,960 from last year's budgeted amount. The water fund budget will be seeing a change to $7 per 1,000 gallons of water, as well as an increase in the base fee from $25 to $30 per quarter. The increase in rates is projected to bring in $523,950 in additional revenue from last year's budgeted amount. Expenses increased $192,448 from the 2023-24 budget. The water fund has a projected loss of $121,831 for the upcoming fiscal year, with $155,000 in capital cost from the budget. The sewer fund budget will also see an increase to $7 per 1,000 gallons from $6.32, as well as the increase in the base fee from $20 to $25 per quarter. With the increase, the sewer fund is looking at a $460,000 increase to its budgeted revenue. The expenses are budgeted to decrease $186,367 from the 2003-2004 budget. The fund is projected to have an operating gain of $57,902, with capital costs to be $10,000 from the balance fund, which has been depleting over the last few years. We started this budget with a proposed 19.1%. We hadn't even spoken to a department head at that point. They had given us their projected budgets, and at that point we started 3 weeks of meetings with individual department heads. Despite what you may have heard, many of these departments heads was above and beyond cutting their requests, some cutting down from $250,000 down to $20,000. The fireman being replaced is a fireman who's replacing a fireman who retired this year. It's not additional fire personnel. We have a grant writer. This young lady who sits right here to my right does it as part of her annual salary to no additional cost to the Village of Fredonia, as well as our grant writers with Labella. I will say, and I said it before, there are many, many, many grants over the years that have been won by former mayors, and there are many, many, many grants that were left on the table. We can't worry about the past. We have to move forward. We had $375 million in New York State ready to go for water infrastructure funding last year. Project wasn't ready to go, but trust me, there were hundreds of thousands of dollars of monies available that we could have used to complete some of the projects in the community. I made you that promise that we would not make that mistake in the past, and many of the people in this room now were not involved in that past. Let's not talk about the past. You want to talk about a lack of vision? Let's talk about a lack of a vision. Where was the vision? Where is the vision? Where does this community want to be in the next 5 years? Where do you want to be in the next 10 years? Where was the plan for the next 5 years? Where was the plan for the next 10 years? We were told for 17 years to dredge the reservoir, and it wasn't done one single time. We just met the other day with the sewage treatment plant, and the blades that help propel the wastewater were so rusted that they fell off and landed in the middle of the waste treatment plant, and they had to stop and fish that out. It's not a great job. You want to talk about police protection? We have one of the smallest police forces in this in New York State who can't get accredited because nothing was done about their police department for many, many years. The building that they're in now was built in 1892. They're sitting behind glass walls and things that need to be replaced and cannot be accredited by the state of New York. So please, tell me about what's been done and hasn't been done in the community. This year's budget expenses includes 5% over last year's budget. This increase will have no effect on our bond rating, and that came directly from the people who produced the bond ratings. In fact, because of the fact that we're projecting more revenue, it will actually help our chances in the years to come. This is not my quote. This came directly from the people who produced the bonds. Last year's expenses were $11,393,000. This year is $11,899,000. It's an increase of 5% just in our expenses. Many of the raises that you're hearing about are due to contractual obligations and are required. I want to assure you that every person who sits in this seat today and every person that has sit in this seat for many, many years are also taxpayers. And I too am now a retired old guy and on a fixed income. So I understand where you're coming from. This was not done frivolously. It was not done with the intentions of destroying our community. And when you sit back and look at 2/3 of your taxes in the Village of Fredonia are school taxes. How many people went to the legislature when the legislature voted themselves a 63% increase when Chautauqua County continues to lead New York State in the exit of people from New York State? We have lost 2% of our village residents 2 years in a row. That's almost a 4% loss of our total residential population. Where does the money come from? It comes from those of us that are here. So I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that what you're going to hear tonight is not done frivolously and it's not done with any joy. Yes, we started out 3 weeks ago with a 19.1 projected based on the requests from our department heads. And I feel that many of our department heads, most of our department heads, have suffered because of the cuts that they put into their own budgets. So with that, I will open the floor to the board. I'm not necessarily supposed to be taking up all this time. With regards to any comments or things that you have with regards to this budget presentation.
Yeah, I had a couple comments. Two things that I wanted to address is I know at first glance the code enforcement office change does not make sense because of what our current chief officer makes. He makes that due to circumstances that are not public and shouldn't be and won't be. But should he choose to retire, what we would need to spend would far exceed that $20,000. So we are kind of creating a plan to assume that office and restructure it a little bit in order to save money should he no longer be our code enforcement officer. Because I assure you, nobody else is going to take that position for what we currently pay him. Probably not even at the double, and not even at double. So that is thought behind some of that restructuring. And as far as people thinking that we shouldn't be giving our employees a raise, there's importance in paying people what they are worth and letting them know that their position and their experience and they personally offer something to the village. I know it's easy to say when you're the one that's footing that bill to say, well, you know what, if they don't like it, then they can go somewhere else. But think about it on the other side. How would you feel if your employer looked at you and said, well, if you don't like it, there's the door?
We've been told that.
It leaves a very unsettled feeling, and you feel like, well, then all right, maybe I will. And then
we try to hire a qualified person when we just chase someone out.
Yes. How long did it take for us to hire a fire chief? 18 months? Yeah, so we were without a fire chief for 18 months.
We volunteer did it.
How long have we been looking for, public portion is closed, thank you. How long have we been looking to replace the last firefighter who resigned? He resigned. So at this point, we're at 2 months and nothing projected. These aren't easily replaced people. That's just the reality of it. So in order to keep our positions filled and to make people think that they're not just a body, we will pay them what their union contracts dictate and what we see as fair. Thank you.
Before we go any further in that, before I go down that road, John, I'm not going to put anybody on the spot tonight because it's not fair. And we're all residents of this community, so beating each other up serves no purpose. But you know how difficult it is when surrounding communities down the street are paying more than what we're currently allowed to pay. Yes, when you sit here and you look at the budget, it looks and it sounds excessive. We've had police officers who've left to go up the street, down the road, people that can pay more money. We've lost firefighters who've gone down the street, up the road, out of state, because communities this size pay even more. And when we talk about communities downstate New York, keep in mind that their population is much larger than ours, which means they can keep their tax rates down. My parents lived in Hamburg. They got snow plowing and they got garbage paid as part of their taxes. We all look for who's going to be the next cheapest garbage collector and who can cut our lawn for next. So I feel your pain. So John?
Yeah, I'll keep my comments restricted to just the budget conversation. There was a concern raised that the fire department would be doing building inspections. They will not be. They will only be doing fire inspections. We still have a building inspector. He's the assistant now, qualified to be the building inspector. He will do that job. There was a question raised whether the option that the village had chosen is still going forward. It is still going forward. Construction will not begin probably till next year, and that's because of the grant timelines. Someone raised the question about the legal fees, and I guess all I can say is it's expensive to fight lawsuits, and that increases, unfortunately, our legal fees. We are applying for WIA and FEMA grants for our water project. That's happening. The question was raised about the fund balance in the wastewater treatment plant. We spent an hour and a half with the wastewater treatment plant supervisor going over a list of projects that necessarily will have to be done. So any money in that fund will be spent upgrading the wastewater treatment plant for projects that probably should have been done in the past. So the money's not going in there and sitting there and not being used. It's being used for projects that have to be done to make that plant work. And that's all I've got.
Just a couple of remarks. Somebody mentioned the $250,000 loss in the water and sewer. That is our projected operating loss for next year after raising these rates. That is not current. It's worse right now. I have to say, I totally disagree. I think we should raise it until we are at a zero loss and an even balance there on the funds. I do not think we should be working in the operating loss situation. So I think we are not raising the water and sewer enough. We are going to be spending that reserve down to do needed work on these plants. We had 5 years of zero tax increase. We spent down the reserve fund. If we were to stay at a 15% minimum reserve, 6.5% of the tax increase would simply be going to rebuild the reserve. You can thank, I won't get too personal here, but our previous board did that. That was not the current board. So that's really all I have at this point.
I have a comment just to go a little further with Trustee Brockler, what he just stated. I'm not necessarily disagreeing that we need a water increase. I had proposed about 2 months ago to table that to identify what the root cause of what the water deficit is. What is it all about? What's creating it? Let's get to the source of the problem instead of just increasing the amount of tax increases for our water revenue. The second thing I'd like to say, and last, is to just go off what Trustee Esperson had just commented on regarding our water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, excuse me. I've stated this before, that's a critical part of our infrastructure. I think we all realize that. think about if it stopped, because there are some critical needs there. I was in that meeting with Trustee Esperson, with that department head, and it's kind of the same thing. Neglect over the years. We need to address the deficiencies there. We need to be proactive, which I believe we are right now. We're working together, and let's get that wastewater treatment plant to the level of operation and performance and reliability that it needs to be. And this is going to cost money, but I'm sorry, this is the state of the village right now. We have inherited a lot of things from the past, and it's not that we're looking in the rearview mirror, we're looking forward, and we have to deal with the issues that we have right now currently. So be assured, residents, that we're doing our best to make that happen.
Trustee Twitchell?
Do I get to talk?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would like to say that I am rethinking about cutting the playground program. At first, I thought, well, that would be a good savings, but then when Trustee Syracuse said she would use that money to hire a part-time clerk at the fire department, I didn't think that was a fair exchange. And I'd like to put that money back in so we could use all the playgrounds that have children. And as the mayor said, we will be speaking with our new director about that, because I really think it's so important for kids to have something to do in the summer. And for a lot of kids, they can ride their bike, they can walk down the street to the playground, and I think that's an important thing to have, because we don't have much in our village for the children, and I would like to support that program. And so far as the building code inspector office, I really don't feel this is the right direction to take. It hasn't been well thought out. I still have a lot of questions about it, and to me, it just seems like we're going to be incurring more costs by doing this, by having firemen involved. And right now, we have one person that will be doing the inspections, the building inspections. And we still do have a secretary in that department. And, but my fear is the person that we have right now doing the inspections, I don't know if he's been properly trained to take over that position, to fill out paperwork that needs to be filled out to be forwarded to the state. And I just feel like it's, and I would like to ask Trustee Esperson, give me names of the villages that do this, because I spoke
Jamestown.
with... Jamestown? Okay, well, I spoke with NICOM, and there were some questions. I don't know if I want to get into it now, but there are some legal questions that we have to take a look at.
Okay.
And I really feel that, by changing this department, it's just going to be, we're going to regret it. And we're putting the cart before the horse, because we haven't changed the charter. You're voting on a budget, and now you're going to reorganize, as you say, without even reorganizing your charter. And to me, that isn't the proper way of doing things. And that's all I have to say right now.
We have a
Mayor?
motion to close the public.
Mayor, if I could just make one more comment.
Yes.
The clerk for the fire department she's already established. She's been hired and working for almost probably the year, because I think she went in last budget. So it wasn't to hire somebody new, it was to ensure that somebody kept their job and they maintained their position.
Okay.
She's not a new
Well,
employee.
what I have to say to that is, it was fine for how many years not to have a clerk?
Can
They
we
were
have this
able
conversation
to
outside
get-
this?
Okay, well, she is commenting and
Okay.
I'm responding.
Okay.
Okay? And I really don't feel that it's necessary to have a clerk down there. There's plenty of time They've done the work before, and if it's just a part-time person, that means there's not a lot of work to do. And to me, I would rather see the money spent somewhere else, and I still would like to look for a cut in all the department heads. 3%, I'm sorry, that's a lot of money. It really is, and I don't think that's fair. I think for a year, we can go without that 3% raise. I don't think anyone's gonna leave. I really don't think people would walk out on us. After all, government isn't here to give people jobs. You know, I mean, I respect our workers and what they do, but, you know, bottom line, you have to take a look at the budget, and you've got to make some hard decisions, and that's one of them. Thank you.
So given all of that, do we feel the need to hold?
Is this going to be a debate back
No,
and forth?
I have would you let me finish? Do we feel the need to hold another budget meeting
Yes.
before we vote on it?
I thought we were going to have another budget meeting.
We don't have anything. Correct. So if we would like to, I think in order to stay in our time constraint, we should probably meet either tomorrow morning or Wednesday morning, so that way we have a week to post the legal notice to have another public hearing, then at the same time, or not at the same time, but prior to.
I'm sorry.
Wednesday, and then.
Post another public hearing. You can continue to meet on the budget.
That's what I thought.
May 1st to
Right.
approve it. You don't need another public hearing.
Right.
If we're making large changes
If you're
to it.
making substantial changes, I believe you do. Because again, if you're making changes that the public wants to give input on,
Exactly.
again, I would certainly double check what the substantial change would have to be, but if the board is going to discuss and make substantial changes, again, even from a perception standpoint, even if it's not a legal standpoint, does
Right.
the public really want substantial changes by a board that you then don't get to have public input on through a public hearing?
Correct.
You all just showed up and gave a lot of good information for this entire board to hear. I think that would be the public's expectation regardless of the law.
I agree.
Okay.
So that gives us then a week to post. So is everybody available either tomorrow morning or Wednesday morning?
Not tomorrow morning.
Well, let's put out, we'll put out an email asking when this week's dates, because I know calendars fill up.
Well, we need
incredibly
7
fast.
days.
We need 7 days.
So
yeah.
it would need to be then Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning, what time would you like to meet?
We want to do 9 a.m. Wednesday morning?
Let's do 10. I have something going on at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Wednesday night.
Okay, 10 a.m. Wednesday morning in this room.
Mhm.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a motion to close the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it. Yeah.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
And Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Thank you.
Let's take 5.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. Refill my water bottle. be held on today, Monday, April 15th, 2024, beginning at 8:20. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Since we already had the pledge this evening, we won't be repeating that. Trustee Esperson.
Here.
Trustee Brockler.
Here.
Trustee Syracuse.
Here.
Trustee Wandel.
Here.
Trustee Twitchell. Can we have an approval of the minutes, please?
Whereas members of this board have read the official minutes of the Board of Trustees regular meeting of April 1st, 2024, now therefore be resolved that the board hereby approves the minutes as entered into the official minutes, and be further resolved that the reading of the minutes be dispensed with.
I second that.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Wandel.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
What am I voting on?
Minutes.
Approval of the minutes.
Before we get into the resolutions tonight, and before we get into the public portion, we have several walk-ons. I want to remind people that in January 22nd, 2024, law was changed that resolutions placed on the agenda after the deadline shall meet the following criteria in order to be considered or included for action. A, the action must have financial impact on the village, positive or negative, and require an action that must be taken prior to the next meeting date. Or B, have an immediate effect on the health and or safety of the citizens of the village. All resolutions that come before the village board should be written and approved by the village attorney when necessary. This was approved on January 22nd, 2024. So we're going to open the public portion of the meeting, tonight's meeting. And do we have a list? Pardon? The public portion of the meeting is for public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak, once recognized, shall stand at the microphone and state their name and address. Speakers will allow 3 minutes of speaking for themselves, 5 minutes of speaking on behalf of a legitimate group. I will ask the speakers to refrain from remarks that are in poor taste, slanderous, or not germane to any action taken and contemplated by the board. Our first speaker tonight is Rob Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. Rob Clark, Village of Fredonia. Tried to keep the tenor of the meeting going from the last one. And I do hope this sounds like the invitation I intended to be. Through the election process, you won the privilege to control and manage our assets and responsibilities, to be a trustee. Sadly, some of you twisted that trust into some kind of outstretched authority to do the county's bidding over 2 administrations. You did so without thoughtful discourse between each other or with the community. Instead, you worked lone wolf and built outlaw alliances, sometimes behind the scenes, sometimes out in the wide open. You bypassed review and operated as if you had a blank check. Oddly, you seem to be petrified of public discourse, relying instead on your special meeting rules to prevent interaction, censorship through the screening of public questions, and letting other people and organizations who use disinformation and scare tactics to speak for you. These now transparent tactics gave you space for open bias and deception without challenge. Thinking now of the comment about Jamestown. But it's enough. It's time for you to engage this public directly. And while it might be still argued that you retain some legal authority here, you're absolutely losing the moral authority to lead this village. You and your partners in the county have divided us, pit us against our neighboring community at a difficult time for many municipalities. And before we even get to your code enforcement scheme, our fire department was already a runaway train. But I want to end on a positive note. I was encouraged to hear we enabled a connection with the North County Water District during our water plant maintenance. Cooperative redundancy will be key to minimizing regional water service outages. And that means continued utilization of the Fredonia Reservoir. Thank you.
Thank you. James Linden.
Good evening again. James Linden. I did attend the informational thing at the Opera House about the water. I found that it was more propaganda than it was clear information. The county official said that we had no connection. When asked about, there was a question asked about whether we have a connection with the North County Water District or involvement with them, and she said absolutely none in whatsoever. But funny how, I mean, I've talked about this a long time, that we have contracts, active contract in place, and we had to have that active contract in place in order for those connections to have been made, and that's how we filled that tank down at Sheridan, interestingly. But then on the front page of the newspaper, the mayor was said to have signed an agreement at the North County Water District meeting to supply water during this time that they're doing some work, and from the North County Water District. Interesting that didn't necessarily have to have happened, because there's a program in place with that contract and how that should be initiated. But if the mayor is signing some type of agreement, shouldn't there been a resolution before the board for the mayor to sign some kind of an agreement? But it didn't happen here. I'm glad that it is happening to prove that it actually works. There's another connection also. There's one in Brockton, one in Sheridan, but also the one on Vineyard Drive. I'm hoping that was also turned on, because that one costs the village less to operate than through the North County Water District. Though the water is cheaper if we buy it directly through that Dunkirk connection and not through the North County Water District. But other things that happened at that meeting was the idea that Fredonia's water, there was these comparisons of our raw water source, how somehow it's not of reasonable quality, or somehow compared to Lake Erie water, that they don't have statistics on, because those aren't required of them anymore. But we all know what's going on. We've seen the news reports with the plastics and the PFAS and all the other things that are in Lake Erie comparatively to the village reservoir. But she compared it in ways like, well, you know that there's people's sewer, they have septic systems. Some are, we know that they're up there, but they're not even certified. Well, if they know they're up there, then they sure damn well better be doing something about it. But also, there's the New York State law, Title 105.3, that actually protects us from those kinds of things, and it's supposed to have been a safeguard our community for our water. So we know we have safe water. There was no violations on our water. She said that we were consistent with a safe water, as we are right now. We're able to drink our water. So with our upgraded plant and needs, we don't need to go buying our expensive water from Dunkirk. I see I'm out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Landis?
So when it rains, it pours. Here I am again. I'd like to start by attempting to correct some misconceptions. When speaking about the plan to draw down a reservoir and buy water from Dunkirk, Trustee Syracuse said more than a few times that this, quote, intermunicipal cooperation will greatly benefit Fredonia, as it will help us to get much needed grants. The same was repeated by some of the other trustees as well as the mayor. Here's the issue. Cooperation means we have each other's back. Cooperation means if they have a problem with water, we're there to help them. If we have a problem with water, they are there to help us. Cooperation means we put money, they put money, and we get some very expensive equipment, and then we use them as a needed basis. Cooperation even means put together the two plants and make one very strong one. What it doesn't mean is, what you're proposing is not cooperation. We're going to become their customers. Just because you go to Walmart and buy decorations for your next event. That doesn't make you their partner. You can't go to the bank and say, I'm Walmart's partner. I buy things from them. Best case scenario, they will laugh. Same will happen with Fredonia. Becoming Dunker's customers will make it harder to get grants, not easier. Especially if you plan to raise taxes by 13%, as we discussed before. You see, the state doesn't like to give money to municipalities that cannot manage their own money affairs and raise taxes. That's what they don't like. Now, since the beginning of our group's effort to save the reservoir, there's been an attempt to undermine our numbers, our willingness to move forward, even our intelligence. County Legislator Parker said that just because we are 20 people here, that's not the village. No, it wasn't. We were told that we were 20, 30, even 50 from that nice lady who sent a letter to the paper and seemed to really like me. She said that 50 people cannot stop progress. Obviously, progress is to buy water from Dunkirk. That's progress. Well, I don't agree with that statement, but I agree that 20 or 30 people are not the village. I don't know how many we are. The only thing I can tell you is that I have here a petition with 300 signatures. They're not everybody, because I didn't get to everybody who called me and wanted to sign the paper. It's a little bit over 300, which I want to give to the clerk, but I want a copy back, if you don't mind. So that's all I have today.
Thank you. Richard Leon.
Again, here we are. One quick thing before I get into my water problems again. The change, one of the things I wanted to mention in the budget thing was the change to the building inspector and the way that that's being handled. Now, I don't know, and I'm sure that, because it's a personnel issue, it can't be discussed in open session and all that. But I haven't heard around the village anyone, and I get around quite a bit, complaining about Chuck LaBarbera and how he does the job. And I haven't heard anybody saying, well, Chuck's moving out of town and wants to quit. So my impression is he's being removed. So you're taking $19,000 out of the zoning budget from last year, which drops that down to 87, and you're adding 100 plus, because now you're at 199,000, I think, for zoning personnel costs. What the heck? We're talking about raising taxes, and you're putting $100,000 into the building inspector's job that we don't need? What is the matter with you people? Quite frankly, I'm upset, and I don't get upset. You see me upset, you know that there's something going on. And that's all I'll say on the issue. Now, as far as the water thing, I've heard a couple of people talk about the presentation. I wasn't there, I watched it on TV, but I had the same impression. It was a public service announcement for, well, let's all get together and go to Dunkirk because they got great water and Fredonia sucks. Pure and simple, that was what it was. Right from the beginning to the end. And on and there was a couple of things I took out of it. One, to come back to the redacted Labella report, we finally find out, well, yeah, it was 3 gangs of lawyers and a bureaucrat from the county that decided that the village taxpayers who paid for a report can't see the freaking report. That's what we found out. There's no legality in that. There's no motion that said, okay, we're going to hand over the authority to the 3 gangs of lawyers and the bureaucrat to do that. Second, somewhere about an hour and 40 minutes into the presentation, when they got into the question and answer session, somebody asked, well, what's happening now? Where is the plan going forward? Is there something in place? And the lady from the health department said, well, There's all sorts of things going on with the, I'll use the words implementation plan. She used something else that skips in my mind right now. There's all sorts of variables and this and that, but there is an implementation plan is underway. Things are in place. That's not what I am understanding from these meetings. Now, can you tell me one good reason? I asked it before. Why are we talking about going to Dunkirk? Agreed, we have pretty much a plant that's just in the final throes. We need to do something about it. The something we need to do is build the new plant, and we can do that in a couple of years or less if we really buckle down and
Thank you,
start
Mr.
right
O'Neill.
now.
Thank you for your time. Correspondence? You have correspondence?
Mayor, I signed the first sheet that I wanted to speak at both meetings.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
As many of you know, I've been coming to a lot of these meetings on the water. And as I stated before, I like to compare options in dollars and cents, since there's no exchange rate published to convert the EDUs, or the equivalent dwelling units, in the Lowell report. I composed a spreadsheet. My spreadsheet shows the cost of things, the cost of purchasing the water from Dunkirk, then doubling it for the lost water, for the distribution system improvements of $7.5 million for both option 1 and 3 over 30 years, the savings expected from the distribution system improvement on lost water for both option 1 and 3, and then the project cost, $34.3 million for option 1 and $26 million for option 3, and come out to a dollar and cents figure. Option 1, and I'll give this to you so you can see it, shows the cost would be $14.69, where option 3 would be $14.63, 6 cents. That's minimal. That's thing. That does not include grant money, interest expense, or anything. That's just plain, straightforward, and simple. What became abundantly clear after 38 slides full of facts that the Department of Health presented, that was the intangibles involved in option 1 all clearly showed it was not the way to go. In the end, I had to agree with Richard Leone and his thoughts that a new plant should be built, but the problem is that option was not explored, and we can't delay any longer. In addition, the facts presented by the Department of Health seem to say that option 3 stood out as most favorable to the Village of Fredonia in safeguarding our need for water 24/7. The one specific item to me stated by the Department of Health was that if there was a gasoline, oil, chemical spill on Route 60, which is in the watershed area, our treatment plant could not properly treat the water and the system would have to shut down. Dunkirk's treatment plant could handle such an occurrence, God forbid, if one should occur. Department of Health also compared the size of Fredonia's reservoir to that of Westfield and Ripley, which showed it undersized relative to the population served. I believe that's why the DOH is insisting on either 1, dredging, which can't be done while the plant is in operation, 2, groundwater wells, which would include additional capital outlay for a study and implementation, or 3, an interconnection. The option that I believe that could be accomplished in the least amount of time is the interconnection. But it has to be done right, and I agree with Mr. Tom Carpenter in his February 10th letter to the Observer to establish at least a 24-inch line between Dunkirk and Fredonia. But it must be done right and placed in the correct place. That is why I suggest the line be placed from the Willowbrook Avenue water tower across Baton Avenue to the Main Street pumping station in Dunkirk, and then into Fredonia along the abandoned rail line ending at the Fredonia main water line under Route 20. In fact, the water line could follow the old right-of-way into Leona and beyond if necessary. I could go on, but my time is short. Please leave the groundwater exploration table and proceed immediately to obtain detailed drawings and cost estimates for the distribution system improvements, which is recommended for both options, coupled with a new 24-inch interconnect. Get the details worked out now in conjunction with the village budget and get the grant money talked about before it's gone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time. There's my spreadsheet.
We have a motion to close the public portion of tonight's meeting.
You don't need a motion
We don't
for
need a
that.
motion.
Pardon?
You just close it.
Okay, I can just close it. Fantastic. You have some power. All right. Correspondence.
Correspondence dated April 5th, 2024 was received from Chief Josh Myers, Chief of the Fredonia Fire Department, requesting to remove the name Stephen Zentz from the active role.
Be it resolved that the request from the Fredonia Fire Chief to remove the name Stephen Zentz from the active role of the Fire Police Company is hereby approved.
I second this.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Wandell.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
So approved.
Correspondence dated March 27th, 2024 was received from Tom DeGolier, President of the Fredonia Farmers Market, requesting the extended use of Barker Common East for the 4th Annual New Horizons Band Concert on Saturday, July 13th, 2024.
Be it resolved that the request from the President of the Fredonia Farmers Market to use Barker Common East for the 4th Annual New Horizons Band Concert is hereby approved. Be it further resolved that it is subject to the direction and control of the Fredonia Police Department.
Second.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Wandell.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
I do want to make a public comment that we do want to thank the farmers market that will be coming outdoors very shortly for the continued work in the community. We look forward to another summer of having them downtown and feeding the people of our community. So thank you. Mayor's report. We want to remind people that the Village of Fredonia will be hosting an informational meeting for its New York Main Street program at Village Hall's Trustee Room right here in the second floor on April 26, 2024 at 6 p.m. The New York Main Street is designed to enliven downtowns through funding to make improvements to storefronts and upper residential apartments. Eligible applicants can apply to receive up to $50,000 for commercial-only improvements and up to $100,000 for qualifying mixed-use properties, which include residential units in the renovation. The information session will be held by representatives from Labella Associates, the consultant team selected to support the village in administering the New York Main Street program. Labella team has guided several communities through similar New York Main Street projects, Restore New York projects, DRI, and New York Forward projects, and will share these experiences with Fredonia property owners. The information session will review the rules and expectations of the New York Main Street program, highlight lessons learned from past projects, and offer property owners an opportunity to ask questions about the projects they are considering. Information has been added to Village of Fredonia's website, along with the application and tips to help property owners know if they're ready to start their projects. Please visit Village of Fredonia, New York, Maine at villageoffredonianewyork.com to access the application and learn more about the New York Main Street program. Applications for the New York Main Street project must be submitted and received by 12 p.m. noon on Wednesday, May 1st, 2024 to be considered. We had 2 weeks of budget hearings, actually more than that, and obviously we have another one coming up that will be held in the chambers. On April 3rd, we took part in the third meeting of the Fredonia Farm Festival Board, and we're happy to say that it is moving forward very nicely. April 4th, the vendors meeting concerning upcoming events in downtown Barker Commons. A couple of vendors wanted to meet privately to discuss things. April 4th, the discussion and Zoom meeting on artificial intelligence and local government was watched. April 5th, participation in the Viewpoint program on WDOE and 96 Kicks. We conducted interviews that same day with trustees Syracuse and Twitchell for the position of Recreation Director. Met with members of the Town of Pomfret Council on local issues concerning water and water treatment. On April 8th, attended a meeting with Labella Associates on the structure and presentation of the Main Street program. Additional budget meetings were also held throughout that week. On April 9th, I met with members of the County Mental Hygiene Group about a possible Pride event to be held in Barker Commons. Date to be coming. April 10th, met with the department head, David Feld, for an update on the needs of the sewage treatment plant for 24-25. There are many, as the treatment plant is about as old as the current water treatment plant. Also on April 10th, the Chautauqua County Department of Health held a water information forum inside the Opera House. About 90 people attended the event. We thank you to Natalie and Jessica for conducting the event, and thank you to the panel members and legislator Susan Parker for gathering volunteers to run questions. We also want to thank the Health Department for the boil water project. For those of you who questioned why we had signed an agreement, it is a one-day agreement between the City of Dunkirk, the Town of Pomfret, and ourselves to have tested the water mains surrounding the community. A, to make sure that they work, which we found one isn't working on the east because it's not ready yet, but also to avoid a possible boil water order. As you know, we're under a conservation order right now until later tomorrow. The project was set up and prepped for today, and they'll be cleaning the clear tank beginning tomorrow morning. So we ask that you continue to reserve your water. The idea behind this is if we run into a situation where we're running out of water, our last bastion of water would be our reserve tank. We would tap into the surrounding mains in order to provide water. So we are proud to have been to do that, and I thank those communities for offering their help in this project. So hopefully we can avoid that boil water issue. We also held my weekly mayor meeting with the mayor session on April 10th. The 14th, I, along with over 100 current residents, sorority, fraternity brothers and sisters, high school athletes from both Fredonia and Dunkirk High School, as well as the college, participated in the annual community cleanup day yesterday. We thank you. We owe a thank you to the Fredonia Police Department and the PBA for creating and supporting this event, with members of the Fredonia Fire Department for participating in the cleanup. I'd also like to thank Tim Hortons for the coffee and donuts, and Trinity Church College Kitchen for donating and cooking hot dogs and other foods and beverages for the participants. We had an amazing weather, and I'm proud to say that most of the village was already clean. So we appreciate that, and these folks made it even better. On behalf of the board and myself, I thank you for that. And that is this month's, or this week's, Miller's report, Mayor's report. Trustee committee reports. Trustee Wendell.
The only thing that I'd like to speak on is continued efforts to work with the wastewater treatment plant. Recently met with the department head. He is doing a great job in terms of identifying what the major issues are with the existing plant. Mayor, that plant is not as old as the water treatment plant he said it was. It was built in 1978.
Looks like. yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it just should be known that it's a rough process. There's a lot going on there, and so the equipment, as you alluded to, that stir piece, things just don't last forever. So we are outlining some major projects, and coupled with that is applying for grants, as there is a plan in place. So just so you're aware that we're definitely focusing attention on that plant. It has definite needs, but we're working on that. So be assured that hopefully we'll see progress in the coming months. And that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Twitchell.
Yes, we do have a walk-on resolution that's going to be read. It hasn't been read yet, but I do have some questions about it. Why does the seeker omit the drawdown of the reservoir, even though our local law requires it? What other parts of the seeker are being prepared, and does our current labella appropriation cover these? And how will the seeker be made available to the public? Those are my questions.
We will get you those answered.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Syracuse.
I'm excited that we have a new rec director that will be starting. She's going to be a great addition to the village. Also, I have a couple of meetings coming up with the Safe Streets group. So we'll be getting an update on the DOT project and also on Water Street.
Thank you. Trustee Esperson.
Yeah, I had a chance to sit down with Chief Myers a week or so ago to discuss some concerns that he had, and I think they were all addressed. I also had a chance to meet with the wastewater treatment plant supervisor, and I was happy to see that he's developing a 5 or 10 year plan of improvements that need to be made, and there are many. And I wanted to thank especially Officer Hodkin for organizing the community cleanup day that I was happy to participate in. I would like to find out how much garbage was actually collected, but it was considerable. The last thing I have to say is the forum that was held was completely brought about by the Department of Health. The village had nothing to do with that. They came and asked us if they could use the Opera House. We got a day for them. We said they could do it. They arranged to have the professors from Fredonia State participate as well. But the village, the trustees, the mayor had nothing to do with setting that up. Like I said before, they just asked us if they could use that facility. That's all I had.
Well, my wife and I got 3 garbage bags, so it was good. And a nice hot dog, too. Trustee Brockler.
I attended the meeting of the Farm Festival Committee and very excited about the way that's going forward. That's going to be very nice to have that long-held tradition continuing. That's really the main thing I want to report on. I don't really want to talk about the budget at this point. And that's been a lot of my last couple of weeks here.
Thank you, sir. Treasurer's report.
Nothing to report tonight.
Additional reports?
Yes, I have them. I just want to say one quick thing about Embrace Fredonia is sponsoring the Attic and Cellar Days this year. And there's registration forms available at the clerk's office downstairs. You can also find a link to register for your own Attic and Cellar Day on our Facebook page and our website. Justice Court Report for the month of March 2024. Total number of cases closed, 121. Of those, vehicle and traffic, 90. Criminal cases, 17. Village ordinances, 9. Civil cases, 5. Total fines and surcharges, $6,298. Parking ticket fines, $2,892, for a total of $9,190. Code enforcement report for the month of March 2024. Building permits issued, 18. Inspections, 20. Certificates of occupancy, 10. Certificates of compliance, 32. Violations found, 11. And violations satisfied, 8. Fees collected, permit fees, $1,405. Certificate of compliance fees, $3,480. Zoning fees, $100, for a total of $4,985. Rental inspections, 30. Rental renewals, 32. 18 permits generated $1,405 in revenue. The estimated cost of work for the month of March was $188,205. The Fredonia Police Department report for the month of March 2024. Total incidents reported, 926. Fredonia Central School calls for service, 1. Accidents, 12. Arrests reported, 31. Vehicle and traffic incidents, 148. Domestic incidents, 14. Parking tickets, 105. And that's all the reports.
Thank you. Resolutions?
Be resolved that the village clerk is hereby authorized to advertise for sealed bids for the purchase of polycationic polymer potable water coagulant liquid form, polyaluminum chloride water coagulant liquid form, polyorthophosphate, powdered blend inorganic phosphates, liquid chlorine, trichlor tablets, 55-pound pails, ferric chloride, and synthetic flocculate for the fiscal year beginning June 1st, 2024, and ending May 31st, 2025. Said bid shall be returnable on Monday, May 6, 2024, 11 a.m., at which time the bids will be publicly open and read aloud in Conference Room 1, Village Hall. The Village Board of Trustees reserves the right to reject any and all bids and to accept the bid deemed most advantageous to the Village of Fredonia.
Second.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Wandell.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Be it resolved that the village clerk is hereby authorized to advertise for sealed bids for metered fuels and water meters for the village's fiscal year beginning June 1st, 2024 and ending May 31st, 2025. Said bids shall be returnable Monday, May 6th, 2024 at 11 a.m., at which time the bids will be publicly opened and read aloud in Conference Room 1, Village Hall. The village board reserves the right to reject any and all bids and to accept the bid deemed most advantageous to the Village of Fredonia.
Second.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Be it resolved that Kayla Sullivan of Liberty Street, Fredonia, is hereby appointed to the part-time position of Recreation Director at a salary of $10,000 annually, effective immediately.
Second.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Be it resolved that the regular and overtime payrolls of the various village departments and bills approved by the Finance Committee and set forth in abstract number 711 through 713 are hereby approved and directed, paid, and filed in the village clerk's office, 9-11 Church Street, Fredonia, New York.
Second.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
And Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Be it resolved that pursuant to Section 520 of Village Law, the following budget transfers are hereby approved. Can I say the attached budget transfers are hereby approved? We'll do that.
Oh, second that.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Whereas according to New York State's property tax cap legislation, if a village government decides to adopt a budget with a property tax levy that exceeds the level set by the state, the village government must pass a local law to override that cap. And whereas adopting said local law is not predicative of the final tax levy, but will provide the Village of Fredonia Board flexibility to exceed the property tax cap if it is deemed necessary, and to ensure that any state recalculation of the applicable limit will not make the village inadvertently out of compliance. And whereas pursuant to Section 20 of the Municipal Home Rule Law of the State of New York, a public hearing must be held on the adoption of proposed Local Law 2 of 2024. Local law to override the 2024-2025 tax cap limit. Notice of such public hearing published in the official newspaper Observer now. Therefore, be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia hereby schedules a public hearing on the 24th day of April, 2024 at 7 p.m. in Trustees Room, 2nd floor in Village Hall, 911 Church Street, Fredonia, New York, to receive comments on the proposed local law. And be it further resolved that the village clerk is hereby directed to publish notice of said hearing pursuant to village law. Local law number 2 of 2024. This local law shall be entitled Local Law to Override the 2024-2025 Tax Cap Limit. Be it enacted by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia as follows. Section 1, Legislative Intent. It is the intent of this local law to override the limit on the amount of real property taxes that may be levied by the Village of Fredonia pursuant to General Municipal Law, Section 3C, and to allow the Village of Fredonia to adopt a budget for the fiscal year beginning June 1st, 2024 and ending May 31st, 2025 that requires a real property tax levy in excess of the tax levy limit as defined by General Municipal Law, Section 3C. Section 2, Authority. This local law is adopted pursuant to Subdivision 5 of General Municipal Law, Section 3C, which expressly authorizes the Village Board to override the tax levy limit by the adoption of a local law approved by a vote of at least 60% of the Village Board. Section 3, Tax Levy Limit Override. The Village of Fredonia Board of Trustees, County of Chautauqua, is hereby authorized to adopt a budget for the fiscal year 2024-2025 that requires a real property tax levy in excess of the amount otherwise prescribed in General Municipal Law, Section 3C. Section 4, Severability. If any clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law, or the application thereof to any person, firm, or corporation, or circumstances shall be adjusted by any court or competent jurisdiction to be invalid or unconstitutional, such order or judgment shall not affect, impair, or invalidate the remainder thereof, but shall be confined in its operation to the clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law, or in its application to the person, individual, firm, or corporation or circumstance directly involved in the controversy in which such judgment or order shall be rendered. Section 5, Effective Date. This local law shall take effect immediately after being filed with the Secretary of State.
Second.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Be it resolved at the request of village trustees John Esperson, Nicole Syracuse, and Mayor Ferguson to attend the NICOM annual meeting and training 2024 at the Sagamore Bolton Landing, 110 Sagamore Road, Bolton Landing, New York, 12814. Is hereby approved at a cost not to exceed $1,500. This conference, excuse me, is sponsored by the New York State Conference of Mayors.
Second.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Wandell.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
I thought they were gonna pay their own expense.
I'm paying my own expense. I'm paying my room.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this means that we're not going to give you money, right?
You're not giving me any money to go.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know.
That sounds good, John.
Okay, can we have
Okay.
a motion?
Second, yes.
Okay, Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Wandell.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell. Okay,
We have
Walk-ons.
pardon?
We have
Walk-ons.
We do have walk-ons.
Be it resolved that pursuant to Section 5520 of Village Law, the following budget transfers are hereby approved. $26,670 from F8029 Water Fund Balance to F8330.44 Water Purification Contractual.
I second that.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Wandell.
Aye.
And Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Whereas the village previously retained its engineer of record, LaBelle Associates, to prepare a reservoir dam engineering assessment, which was submitted to NYDEC approximately December 2022. Whereas LaBelle Associates has continued its contact with DEC since the 2022 submission and has advised that further services are necessary to complete the 2022 engineering assessment, and that completion of the assessment is required for certain grant and funding opportunities to the village. Whereas the village's engineer of record, LaBelle Associates, has the professional expertise to provide the professional services as required to address the New York DEC's concerns and amend the engineering assessment. Whereas such professional services permit the village to forego competitive bidding requirements set forth in General Municipal Law, Section 103, whereas the village desires to engage LaBelle to complete the 2022 Reservoir Dam Engineering Assessment. Now therefore be it resolved, the village hereby approves the professional services to be performed by the village's engineer of record, LaBelle Associates, at a cost not to exceed $26,670 in accordance with the proposal dated February 12th, 2024.
Second.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Wandell.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
New York State DHSES staff Mark Rubin informed the village on April 5th that the application for the FEMA BRIC grant was eligible and complete, but not ultimately selected due to the strong demand of funding from so many applicants. And his letter notification recommended resubmitting the package for opportunity DR-4723 severe storm flooding, and this submission is required to be submitted by April 30th, 2024. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia approve the resubmission of the FEMA BRIC grant application for FEMA Opportunity DR-4723.
Second.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Wandell.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Whereas the Village of Fredonia Water System Improvements Project involves specific actions to improve the village public water system, PWS, including but not limited to construction of an interconnection pump station and force main to pump potable water from the city of Dunkirk, PWS, to the Village of Fredonia, PWS, decommissioning of the Village of Fredonia water treatment plant, construction of potable water storage tank, and construction of complementary improvements, including but not limited to targeted modification of distribution system piping and building system improvements at various village-owned facilities throughout the village, PWS, and whereas environmental review of the water system improvements project is required pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEEKR, and whereas that the water system improvements project is classified as a type 1 action as defined under SEEKR, and whereas the Village of Fredonia has retained LaBelle Associates, DPC, to prepare Part 1 of the Seeker Full Environmental Assessment Form for the project. Now therefore be it resolved that in accordance with Seeker, the Village Board of the Village of Fredonia intends to serve as lead agency to conduct an environmental review of its water system improvements pursuant to Seeker. Further resolved, the Village Board of the Village of Fredonia will notify any involved and interested agencies of its intention to act as lead agency for this project and will provide them with a copy of the completed and signed Part 1 of the Full Environmental Assessment Form for review.
Second.
Trustee Twitchell?
Well, I was against this option 3, but I would like to see a seeker being done. So I'll vote aye on this.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye. Whereas the village requires new miscellaneous street equipment, including but not limited to a dump truck and loader for the street department, and whereas it is the intent of the Village of Fredonia to file an application under the USDA Rural Development Community Facilities Program to purchase the miscellaneous street equipment, including but not limited to a dump truck and a loader, whereas the Village Board of Trustees authorizes the treasurer and the mayor to sign any and all documents relating to this loan and or grant. The Village Board stated that they are favorable in purchasing this equipment and is essential to the community. Therefore, be it resolved, the Village Board hereby authorizes the application be filed with the USDA Rural Development Community Facilities Program for the street equipment.
I second that.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
I make a motion that we enter into executive session for attorney-client privilege discussion.
Second.
May we also add that this may include leading to a potential removal of an employee and to receive legal advice from counsel.
Sure.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And we want to remind you that our next meeting will be next Wednesday's workshop at 9 a.m.
No.
Right up here where we are right now,
Yeah.
correct? Is our next meeting? Wednesday, I'm sorry, Wednesday budget. meeting.
Wednesday budget meeting in the
So,
morning.
bring your popcorn, and we'll see you next week.
Can you see if there's